Welcome in, guys, to another episode of the Fly High Wi Fi Mental Health Podcast. Um, it's been a little while. We apologize as we're winding down, had some of the holidays, had other stuff going on, but we are going to be trying to be more consistent, as we say all the time. But myself, Praz, Ryan, Sharp, whatever you guys want to call me, or you have Mrs. Wi Fi here. You guys, this is a tough time of the year for a lot of people. I want to start the show with this one. This is a tough time for a lot of people. So don't feel like you are alone. Don't feel like you have nobody. Even if you just need to sit on the phone in silence to know that somebody picked it up. You guys have my phone number. You have my Discord. You have the Fly High Wi-Fi Discord, the Twitter, Facebook. The DMs are always open, guys. Don't hesitate to reach out and talk to us. We might not be able to give you the advice or everything, but we can give you an ear. And sometimes that's all you need. Hear yourself, go through your thoughts. And sometimes it's that simple, but not all the time. So make sure that you're not holding everything in. Make sure you are getting out your thoughts. Don't feel like you have to bear them alone. Professional help, a friend, family, a stranger. Hell, sometimes they're the best ears. I ain't gonna lie to you. I had some of my best conversations with random people in the most random places. But we are glad to be back. Miss Wi-Fi not feeling so good. She got a horse in her throat. um, the topics today are
Social anxiety disorder and hyper independence. Before we jump into those, kind of along the same lines that Ryan was just talking about, we talked about SAD before, seasonal affective disorder. December is SAD awareness month, so along with moving into this time of year, just keeping that in mind. We have a full episode, or kind of like a half episode on it, but it's a type of depression that occurs during certain seasons, usually fall and winter, but it can happen in the spring and summer. So just kind of moving into these type of seasons where people do kind of have more of that seasonal depression along with the holidays. So we'll start with social anxiety disorder. This is a topic that Ryan picked probably beginning of October.
I'll say so long
Um,
ago I forgot.
yeah, it was a long time ago. I kept putting it on the back burner. Sorry. Um, so it's like normal to get feelings of butterflies in your stomach, but with social anxiety disorder, basic everyday interactions cause significant anxiety, um, self-consciousness, and embarrassment because you feel like you're being scrutinized or judged negatively by others. So some people can't even like leave their house because they're afraid of the judgment of others. This type of fear or anxiety can lead to avoidance that can disrupt your life. Severe stress can affect your relationship, daily routine, work, etc. So some of the like emotional and behavior symptoms for somebody who has social anxiety disorder, it's also known as like a social phobia.
The social phobia, okay.
So that's like the extent of it. It's not just like a regular anxiety, it's moving into like a social phobia.
Okay.
Fear situations in which you may be judged negatively, worry about embarrassing or humiliating yourself, intense fear of interacting or talking with strangers, fear that others will notice that you look anxious. So we'll move into some of the physical symptoms, but you're fearing that people are actually noticing that you're anxious within that.
Okay, so that's
situation.
you all right?
I'm struggling. Um, Avoidance of doing things or speaking to people out of fear of embarrassment. Avoidance of situations where you might be the center of attention. Anxiety and anticipation of a feared activity or event. So a lot of times you'll see people with this, they'll like plan something, but then they'll cancel it because they start to
Yeah.
anticipate that event or whatever it may be.
Cricky says me. Marcus said this one is big with me walking with the cane being so young. I feel like everybody's judging me.
Yeah, so just like everything with this,
And
um,
that's just a sad thing that he has to feel like that. And that's just the world's making it that way. It's not natural to be like that.
yeah. And there's spectrums of this. Like,
Uh oh.
there's saying like there's that specific part that makes you kind of self-conscious versus somebody who like is on the higher end of the spectrum that like won't even leave their house because of everything.
Okay.
Some of the physical symptoms is blushing, fast heart rate, sweating, trembling, upset stomach, or nausea, trouble catching your breath, dizziness to the point of even passing out sometimes, feeling that your mind has gone blank, so kind of like a dissociation factor. You just shut down,
Right.
and muscle tension.
Anxiety. That happens. Like a lot of those symptoms is anxiety, obviously for a reason, but this one is more into identifying what's creating the anxiety in this moment.
Mhm.
Um, like
Uh,
getting in, like being the center of attention in front of in the room, being the center of attention is a big one for a lot of people. People that especially never done public speaking. I know for me, baseball and sports, being the center of attention was usually meaning you're doing something right and you're being noticed for talent versus anything, and that you live off that and you fuel off that for that moment. But when you take somebody out of that moment and try to put them in front of a crowd to speak to them, not many of them can do it when the spotlight's not on the sport they're playing or the event that they're doing.
I think also with that I noticed, I guess even for myself being an athlete, um, if I had to like speak in front of a crowd, it was kind of like the class clown type deal.
You
I wanted
try to
to
be
take
funny,
attention off of like if it was serious. Uh, or if I was like you're saying like really well prepared you to a
right?
T, I could do it. You know, my physics class, I was very much like willing to go up in front of class, willing to talk about it. But if you put me in a history class, there was like no way I was willing to go up in front of the class. Like, I was like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I did well enough to pass the class, but I wasn't like able to go speak.
right. With sports, like I was always loud, motivational, and you would think outside of that, I was like always like that everywhere I went. But unless I had a reason to be, I was always just more mellow and sat in the back. I didn't want the spotlight to be on me in regular life, but in sports, I wanted always to be the best.
And that's something you were passionate about. So I think
Hmm.
kind of plays into like the passion of knowing what you were doing
Right.
versus like the areas you're not as confident in.
I
So
remember
that's
the
where you can get that self-conscious
I remember the
aspect.
first time I had to lead PT for the army. I was nervous and quiet, and then all you hear is like, "We can't hear you in the back." I'm like, "All right." And I started yelling, and then that's like kind of what broke it. Because I was with the at that time when we first started, we were all strangers,
Hmm.
so it's all strangers. You don't get that comfortable, like being comfortable with them until later. So, and then they become your best friends and family.
So kind of moving along with that, how you kind of grew in your environment. And so
Right.
some of the causes for that can be your environment. So the first beginning of your PT, you kind of weren't able to do it, but you grew within that and were able to kind of overcome it and grew into that part. It can be an inherited trait. It's not clear how this plays a part. However, there have been ties between generations of family members, it looking like it's being passed down, or maybe it's just like a learned trait, but they're not sure how. But the brain shows that if like the mom, the daughter, kind of it's being passed down throughout in the genes, and then it can have the brain structure. Some people have an overactive amygdala causing the increased anxiety.
Okay.
So the amygdala holds the fight or flight. Prevention can be getting help early. If you know, just like increasing your anxiety, reaching out for that professional help, and kind of getting a game plan on how to get it under control before it is too far along. Keep a journal, kind of get the thoughts out in front of you versus keeping it in.
Right. Don't compartmentalize things, guys. Even if you got to write them down, like it says in a journal. If you don't want to talk to somebody about it, at least get them off your chest and onto paper, out of your mind and onto paper.
Set priorities in your life or set boundaries. We've been talking a lot about boundaries. So your anxiety can grow if you're letting people cross boundaries and you're not able to say no to somebody for something, or you're not.
That last one we just talked about.
Yeah,
Yeah, that one. Them are boundaries that I now I
don't worry.
notice it every time I do it now, and I'm like, oh man,
This next topic's
why?
gonna get you too,
Oh,
because they kind
great.
of tie together.
Thank you.
um, and then avoid unhealthy substance use. And when you have like high anxiety, that can even go to like caffeine. Caffeine triggers anxiety. So when I say unhealthy substance use, it's not just drugs or alcohol. It's kind of going down to how much caffeine intake you're having, really watching that stuff because
Yeah,
that can trigger it to be worse.
I know a lot of people with marijuana and THC. If you have anxiety, it can also have it's like an anxiety amplifier. If you didn't know that,
Mm-hmm.
THC actually is bad for anxiety, but good for those. It might work the negative way, just like Benadryl and my kid. It's supposed to knock you out and slow you down, and it puts him up a wall. First time we ever gave Grayson Benadryl, stayed up for like 24 hours, just rampant. Just so now
I
we have
would
to
make
give
sure
it to.
he's not having an allergic reaction to that. So it's a sign of an allergic reaction.
Yeah, so we took him back to the doctor, and she was like, it just has the reverse effect on him. Everything else was fine. He was just hyper. It was crazy. Never seen it before in my life.
Um, so as many as 13% of Americans experience the social anxiety disorder or symptoms.
What was that
So it's
number
pretty
again?
low, 13.
Okay,
I feel like I was expecting it to be higher.
I agree.
So among that 13, 29.9% is serious, 31.3% is mild, and then 38.8% is moderate.
Okay,
The prevalence of social anxiety among adolescents was higher for females at 11.2% higher than so
oh,
boys.
you cut out for that last part.
That it was 11.2% higher than males.
Okay,
So females and adolescents is higher than males.
You guys want to know how you break social anxiety? You find a full elevator and you're the last one in. And instead of turning around, you face everybody. Makes them awkward.
I always say it's not awkward unless you make it awkward. So
Right. Cruz says, nope.
excuse me.
Mark says, the thought of that makes my skin crawl.
Well, now it's a challenge for all of you to go do that. And report back.
I take a hard pass. Come on, guys. It's serious. This is, you got to be uncomfortable sometimes to know your boundaries and to know what you're capable of. You got to push yourself past your limits. Crew, you act like you're taking the stairs, buddy.
Somebody will, Cookie will do the elevator, but he's not talking in front of a class.
He's a fibber. Yeah. So, guys, Cricky, you say you can't speak in front of the class, but you could step on the elevator and do that. For you, what makes it hard for you to go in front of the class versus walking into a elevator full of strangers and looking them all in the eye? Cruz says all I do is take stairs. You see the class every day, right? Guys, I asked Cricky. Why you guys answering the question for him? So it is the people you're more comfortable with strangers versus the people that you see every day. I had that same problem my freshman year public speaking class. Yeah, you had to memorize the. I remember my first real. Here, I'll wait till let's just inspect out. I remember my first real moment of like social anxiety for me was I had to speak in front of the whole school on Martin Luther King Day and give a speech or a poem. Had to read a poem, and it was called Blacks and Whites. And I swear I blacked out after I read the first line. And I don't remember anything after that, but I do remember Mr. Mendez coming up to me telling me, "Great job, thank you," and then that's all I remember. And I knew the whole school. So I should have felt comfortable in front of my peers, but like Ricky says, he was like people that I know more and see every day. So forget
And
everything.
sometimes
Go ahead.
when you're up in front of people that you know, there's that fear of judgment when you do have that
Touche.
closeness because you're going to see them again versus if you're never going to see those people again. You have nothing to prove to the strangers.
Absolutely.
But then some people are vice versa. They don't want to speak in front of strangers. They want to speak in front of people they know. So it's just kind of that person. It's the personal.
Understandable. All right. Is that what you got for that topic? All right. So what's this one you're going to attack me again with? I do wonder how I
So
would do with it now after nearly 7 years of streaming. See, yeah, and that's where streaming is good. We talked about it, how it gives you the comforts of your own four walls, but yet you get to interact with other people. All right. Taking this one on the chin.
so hyperindependence ties to the high functioning codependency. There's a lot of people that are high functioning codependent are also hyper independent for themselves. Hyper independence is when an individual is extremely self reliant and avoids asking others for support or help. It typically comes from a stress response or a trauma response in the individual from their childhood, usually from neglect or abuse that led them to feel unsafe or continuously let down. This typically built to, or they developed a lack of trust in people. And that is why the individual decides or has the anxiety to rely on others and they just rely on themselves. So it ties to the high functioning codependence because they're trying to go in that other lane and help that person. So they're taking
Right.
on that other person and not staying in their lane, but they also don't want anybody to come in their lane because they don't trust. So they're not trusting that the other person or that other object can handle it without them, but they're not going to trust to let other people into their life to help them either. So that's like the tie.
I get it. I do. And that's 100% get it. You say instead, like a lot of the times it stems from trauma or childhood trauma. And
So it's
I can
typically
agree
from
with
the
that.
childhood. It can be from teenage or different events in life that starts it.
Hmm.
There's hyper independence, PTSD, and then there's hyper independence, fear of abandonment. So there's different versions of it too. So you have just hyper independence in general. Then you have hyper independence that's developed from PTSD. So that can be at any point in your life. So it's a
Okay.
little bit more in depth because it depends on what the PTSD was that caused it. And then the hyper independence, that's fear of abandonment, is the same way because the fear of abandonment could be developed as a child or as something that happened later in life too.
Could you have, do they say anything about possibly like
You can
having
have
symptoms
both.
in both?
Yeah.
Mm,
You can cross and then you kind of just become a big mush of hyper independence. And then if you're high functioning codependent, you kind of all those like circling.
like all three of those for me can all stem back to my mother's suicide, her drug problems. But I felt like I was protecting her by doing things, and then when she did what she did, she abandoned her kid. Why could you leave me? Why would you leave me alone? I need
Mm-hmm.
you, mom. But then the PTSD from that for the rest of my life, dealing with it until I got help
Mm-hmm.
or learned that it wasn't my fault. I was just a child. Like it took years for me to understand that. But all three of those is why you said I will feel like it's at me. And yeah, I get it. It makes sense.
Trust me, I take the jabs when I'm doing the research, so you take the jabs here.
Yeah. I'll be the guinea pig.
um, so this is ultimately like the trauma response. So you're
Okay.
stuck in a trauma response when you do this.
Okay.
Being hyper independent can cause issues in relationships, obviously, because you're not allowing them to be in or ask for help. You're also crossing over into the other lane. So you have to learn to kind of let down those barriers, and that's the hardest thing to do.
Oh yeah.
So just like every other topic we've discussed, it's important to get to the underlying cause of it, to understand why this individual feels this way, thinks this way, and acts this way. Help them learn ways to cope and reconstruct their beliefs on it.
Understand that.
So it's not something that is like easily changed because you have to reconstruct. go back all the way to their childhood. Like you said, have to teach yourself like it wasn't your fault. None of that had to do necessarily with you, and she didn't like necessarily lead you.
Right.
So you have to retrain those parts of you to understand it
To see it
for
and
what it truly
understand it in a
was.
different
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, something that I still work on because I lack the trust in people that they're going to be there just because of my childhood and things that I've been there through. I'm somebody who constantly tests people. I know it.
Oh yeah.
And it's a test in trust. So you can pass the first test and we're moving right into the next test. I'm like playing chess.
Some people are playing
And
checkers. You're playing chess.
and it's not fair to that other person because I'm not really building the trust. I'm setting them up for failure
Absolutely.
because I want to prove to myself that I'm right, that they're gonna leave or something's gonna happen and that I had the right to not trust them.
Right.
When in fact it was just my own brain playing the game.
I just like thinking about it. I don't know. Maybe because I can relate to it. I feel like this is more common than probably the numbers that they have on this. Because you said it's a new study. Is this side of it a new study also?
No, hyper independence
Okay.
is not.
Okay.
I don't have any numbers on it though.
Okay. Yeah, I can get that. And a lot of relationships, I'm sure, fail from it because both of them. What happens if two of them are independent, get together,
They
and there's
clash. So I
yeah, they
did
clash. There's no
because nobody's letting
communication.
people in. Yeah,
Yep,
because
no
nobody's letting anybody
communication.
in.
Barriers and boundaries are held higher. So I
um,
get it.
so in one of the studies they gave an example kind of like of what a hyper independent might look like, might do, and this is just a broad example. The hyper independent person may have no desire to form any connections or relations with other people, may live alone, go to work, and spend most of their time alone. Even if they're going through something mentally or facing a challenge in their life, they will not ask for help. They'll figure it out on their own. It is important to note that just because a person is spending time alone, it doesn't mean that they're hyper independent. Because some people do want that interaction. They just are introverted. So you have to be able to like distinguish who's choosing to go do
Here we go with
it on
another
their own.
topic that ties into another one. Introvert, extrovert. So
So some signs of hyper independence is mistrust in people and others, perfectionism. So these people want to do it,
ouch.
yeah, their way, and it has to be like perfect. Avoiding dependence on others, little to no close relationships. So this one I was thought was interesting because it was talking about how they can have a lot of relationships, but none that they really like have that close connection with. Not wanting to ask for help, anxiety and depression, taking on too much responsibility, which leads to stress and burnout, and difficulties in relationships.
It's hard to tell people no. So when everybody asks the favor, immediately say yes, even though you know you're not going to be able to do it, but you're going to stress yourself out trying to get it done.
The therapies that have been used to help are cognitive behavior therapy and trauma focused. And then specifically for the PTSD, hyperindependence, they've used EMDR.
And that's something we talked about already, right?
Mm-hmm. pretty much just like desensitize yourself to the
Right.
situation. And then they also stress practicing self-care and learning to have open communication with those around you. So those seem like such small things when you're a hyper independent person. Those aren't on your list to do.
Right.
So it's typically learning how to do those, or what you learn in the therapy sessions, is setting aside the time to, and then always remember that asking for help is not a sign of weakness.
Hmm. I once had a great friend that made me feel that same way, and he never let me ask for help. He made it feel like I didn't ask for help. He just stuck his neck out there and did things to help me. And that's that man, Tyler.
Mhm.
He humiliated himself for my family. Not just me, my family. Never would have let me ask. He just listened to me and he knew what he had to do. And it's so wild. Yeah, he would always say, "Show me your culo." Yes, Cricky.
Oh, I like the thing.
The emo, yeah, we have a lot of them, but it's so crazy. And then I wouldn't have you now.
Nope, it could have been the face.
Yep. I remember the day you walked in when he had your dress on. That was funny.
I just want to do whatever I want. It's like, here we go.
Yeah.
I think I just told him don't get anything on it because I don't wear it to work.
I don't know how the hell he fit into it, to be honest.
He didn't. It wasn't zipped up.
Ah, that makes more sense now.
He was hanging out on the back.
I'm sure you like that. All right. So, a little more personal thought here. Got to go into these last couple of topics, but identifying them is going to be easy because now that they're aware, I'm like made aware of them. It's gonna stick out like a sore thumb when I do those certain things or act a certain way. Like you said, the perfectionist thing. That one to me is hard because my old partner Carlos that I worked with for 5.5 years always called me a recovering perfectionist.
And there's nothing wrong with having like high standards, but it's
If you're
understanding the difference between having too high of standards.
not realistic,
Yeah. So like you can have high standards and say like this is what it needs to be to like pass. But like if you're making unrealistic expectations, then you have to really, or if you're the only one that can do it that way and nobody else's ideas work, then that's when it needs to kind of
right?
be reeled back.
I get it. Does window shopping fall under that? Jeez. Window shopping. He's always window shopping. You just have to be reasonable, right, Marks? You just holding certain things to an unrealistic like level is just not gonna happen. Sometimes you have to accept that you can't be perfect in that situation.
Did you find stats?
What's that?
Did you find any statistics?
No, I didn't. Let me see if I can find any. What should
I'll
I?
be right back.
Okay. What am I googling again? Joe Dubsky, good to see you, brother. Yeah, Mark, that's a very valid statement, Marks. But how many listen to the live within your means thing and look where it gets them, right? Hyperactive, offended. I'm a victim of my own thing on that one. I don't even want to hear it. Let's see. Trauma and young adult. I don't want just young adults. I want overall hyper independence. See. So bright. Why? My PC's in dark mode too, and the white page is smacking me in the face. They don't have nothing on that website. Thanks. Jeez, oh Pete's. These guys are trying to give me a migraine looking at white pages. All right, numbers, numbers, numbers. Scanning, no numbers. 3 pages, no statistics so far. Just symptoms, trauma response, the mind and body's response to trauma, mistrust of others, coping mechanisms. So far, I'm gonna say we'd have to really dig into it for statistics and see what we can find. We'll do that one for another time. Aspect, thank you for joining us. Is that all we got? All right, guys. As I've been taking a couple shots on the jaw the last couple of podcasts here by these topics. And then we talked about the social anxiety and then hyper independence today. So, guys, if you have to, do some research, talk to people, go see professional help. If you can't find help anywhere else, don't be scared. Asking for help is not a weakness, guys. We can't stress that enough. Um, Obviously, we are non medical professionals. Well, actually, non medical professionals, but we have some good news here. We haven't shared it
We
yet.
have a good bit of news, actually.
Uh oh. What do you mean bad news?
I said good bit,
Oh, good news. I thought you
good
said
bit.
good and bad news. I was like, uh oh.
No, because we have
Good
quite a few
news.
things
I will
to
let
say.
this one go on with what she just completed.
No, you can say it. I don't want to talk anymore.
She is officially done with her degree to be a counselor. So we officially have a graduate for counseling attached to Fly
I
High
wouldn't
Wi-Fi.
say I wouldn't say it's a counseling. So I have my master's in mental health studies.
Mental health studies. Okay, okay, okay. We'll go there. But still, congratulations to you. That's a big step in moving
Mhm.
forward and being something more for the foundation than you already are.
And then, thank you. And then I'll complete next semester the addiction studies.
The addiction studies. Awesome. All right, guys. Again, I can't touch enough holidays. Holidays, reach out to family that you haven't spoke to in a long time. Make sure they're all right. If you have to, reach out to friends that you haven't spoke to or haven't heard from recently. Make sure everybody's doing all right because this time of the year is hard. It is real hard, and a lot of people might not have the families that they used to, and they might be alone on the holidays. If you have the room or you got the chance to, and they're close, local, invite them over. Let them be family. Don't be scared to open that door for somebody else because you would want somebody to do it for you. Definitely a rough time of the year. Absolutely, Marcus. Doors locked crew. You're something else, man. He's probably the one of the biggest hearted people in here. But we will have one more show. We will should have one more show before Christmas, guys.
I'm trying to,
We're gonna try 2 weeks from today. Well, 2 weeks on a Thursday.
unless I
um,
change it again.
unless she changes it again, yeah. Christmas special. As long as I ain't gotta play Christmas music, man.
Okay.
But our merch is live! Exclamation point! If you're in our kick chat, exclamation point FHW merch, and all the proceeds will go that get earned through the merch will go towards the foundation and helping others. I gotta order mine yet. I haven't even ordered my own line of merch. It's been up for 6 months.
Wanted to see how it worked. I was asking you all the
Yeah,
questions.
yeah. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Beard needs to be white, and you can be Santa. I'll think about it. You guys got to earn that one. You guys got to earn that one. All right, guys. Again, thank you for being here. It means a lot to us for the ones in the kick chat that show up each and every time that we have these. For those that follow us on all the other audio platforms such as Pandora, Spotify, YouTube. I don't know if we're on all our
Hmm.
we're on YouTube or all the VODs on there. Like these. Awesome. So we appreciate you guys. If you follow the Facebook, you're in the Discord and you're active, and we really do appreciate it. Without you guys, we could keep pushing forward. And we just want to say thank you if you're not able to make the next show. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from myself and Mrs. Wi-Fi. All right, guys, have a good one. Bye.